So it is a Sunday night and I should probably go to bed. But I spoke with some individuals recently in regards to where I want to take these videos and what I want to see them achieve or accomplish or similar. I spoke to somebody on YouTube the other day and they asked me when my next video would be out and that sort of thing, and to be honest, I'm not entirely certain that I can commit to these on a long-term basis, or in terms of I'm not sure I can provide a service that is by any means professional, because I'm not a professional is the most important thing. I have no training in these things, only my experience. And I think that what's important above all to say is that I want to make videos of quality, even if there's only 2 or 3 or 5 or 1 or whatever it will be, or similar. My dad said to me recently that I need to make sure that they are structured and purposeful and all this sort of thing. And I'm actually not really looking at any notes right now. I've got quite a lot of stuff typed up that I wanted to mention, or maybe not, depending on the best approach, because my personal views and my subjective experience might offend people. I mean, I hope they don't, but I want to inspire and I want to help people, but I'm aware that one of the reasons I didn't actually make videos in the past in regards to body dysmorphia or similar is because the internet is a scary place. I mean, people can wrap it up however they like and say whatever they like about that, but the internet is full of so much hiding behind screens and being brutally honest sometimes, or maybe not even honest, but cruel. And I think it's absolutely normal to be scared or even terrified of putting yourself out there in case you receive negative feedback. But as I said, I want to help people in some way, so hopefully through this and the videos I've already made there will be a positive change. As I said about my personal views and opinions, to wrap this up as quickly as I can, for example, I'm not a religious person. I'm very much the opposite. My views on these topics, on certain topics like religion and what I found did or didn't help me, spirituality or a lack of, I don't want to say something that will offend somebody who might, for example, use faith as a means of comfort and of overcoming or even surviving their body dysmorphia. I think that's very important, because as somebody who isn't religious, it is one of my personal philosophies above all else that if I were to wake up tomorrow and decide to be religious or feel, I don't want to sound ignorant, if I were to become religious, I wouldn't want someone like myself saying you can't be, because I was religious. I was raised as a Christian through the British school system, and I was very religious or at least I was Christian until about my 21st birthday, roughly. But not to get too sidetracked again. What I'd like to just quickly talk about are methods that I have found that have increased my coping during times of need, during BDD blips, BDD attacks, and that kind of thing. I mentioned before that I think it's very important to accept that it is okay to be unwell. It's the taboo, as I said before, is an issue. Of course it is, but if you're unwell, you're unwell, and running away from it and trying to deny it will only make it worse, because I think it's almost like, I use the analogy of diabetes a lot, that it's like not taking your insulin or just saying, oh, I'm not going to be a diabetic anymore. It doesn't work like that. The brain is a mysterious but somewhat understood organ. As far as I'm aware, the most important organ of all. And if there is a malfunction in some way, either just the chemicals or a learning process that has led to a dysfunction, a belief system that has been set in place, then that is something that can't be run away from. And at this point, I'd like to say to anybody who is suffering from body dysmorphia that this is a belief system. Many doctors have said to me in the past, are you aware that it's not a physical problem, it's the way you think? And you say, but how can that be? Because I look at myself and I see this, when it was my ears that were the problem, or whatever it is that sometimes comes up, because there are still days. But I am learning more and more now to separate the fantasy from the reality in regards to what I believe, the belief system, compared to what is real. And I want to be very careful when I say this. Something a commenter said to me once, and I'll just be honest, is that how can somebody so attractive not know that they're attractive? And to be honest, that question has worried me since I thought about making these videos, and I know that mostly because it sounds arrogant to be like, oh, how can I not? And what I mean is that I was worried from the very beginning that people might think that, this is ridiculous. How can you say this? You can't understand me because you don't look like me. You look like this. But I think that the very nature of body dysmorphia is that we believe these things so sincerely. We convince ourselves that we're hideous, and we always see other people as better than we are. And I think, without sounding too out there, everybody is unique in their own ways, and everybody has something, I think, that somebody else craves or envies, whether it's physical or or something else, whether it's a set of skills or a passion or a personality trait or an accomplishment, and we prize physicality so much. And I think, again, I'm trying not to sound arrogant, and I don't want that. More, I want to explain that I in regards to this comment, I worry that people will think that I don't take it seriously, or that in some way, well, I'm not articulating this properly, but I think when it comes down to it, your belief in how you look, your insight is the issue, not not reality, because we convince ourselves of something that other people just don't see, and that's written on all the websites and written in all the books and the self-help manuals and so on. But I hope from somebody who has body dysmorphia, who has been faced with somebody saying, but you look this way and yet you seem to think that way, I hope you can apply that to yourself, because there are so many times, and there have been so many times, where I have been so perilously close to ending my life, or wanting more so to end my life, because I've been so distressed thinking that I'm so hideous and so grotesque, and there's something wrong with me, and that no one would ever love me, and all these horrible things that we tell ourselves. But in reality, people clearly see us differently, and I think that is the beauty. That is what I'd like people to try and remember, is that we just don't see ourselves as others do. It's not real. It's, our insight, we just tell ourselves these horrible things. I spoke to a friend today, and we were talking about how society, it regulates verbal conversation. We say to ourselves, we say out loud these things that people immediately comment on, but we don't regulate our thoughts, our internal thoughts. We say things to ourselves that are so horrible, we'd never say them to other people, ever. And yet we think that's okay. We're not compassionate to ourselves. I think we live in a culture, where we're scared to praise ourselves and forgive ourselves. We're afraid to actually say, I am, and then insert something positive, and really accept it, and to like ourselves. I think that's why we thrive on so many things like, gossip, websites and magazines and so on, tearing each other down all the time, because we think that everyone is doing it and that it's okay because we do it to ourselves. We critique and we do all of this, but I think at the same time, so many people wouldn't stand up in front of a mirror and stand up in front of a person and say, you're disgusting, you're hideous. But we'd say it to ourselves because we think it's okay. But as I've probably said in another video, we have to be careful of what we say to ourselves, because our minds are listening. And that is so true. These things, they chip away at us until we believe them. And I think that's in essence of what I'm trying to say, is that we have these belief systems, and we build up a resume of evidence that tells us we're one way or the other. But as has happened to me, and I know, and I desperately hope you'll accept, has and will happen to all of you who have body dysmorphia, that people do see you as beautiful. People see you in ways that absolutely do not reflect what you see and believe and feel when you look in the mirror. Whether it's your family or your friends, loved ones, whether it's partners and friends and so forth, and individual strangers from the past, are those in the present and one day in the future, because they will be there. And I mean, sometimes, you know, you see things like Jeremy Kyle and you think, my God, I mean, no offence to the people on certain TV shows like that, you think, well, if you can do it, if you can slug it out and get married and have 25 children, then fair enough, so can I. And I'd really like, you know, not to get sued for saying that. But my point is, regardless of who you are and what you have, you know, there's something definitely to be said for not appreciating what's actually there, because we are so good at beating ourselves down. People say to me, Andrew, you're too nice. Maybe other people are just too nasty. Maybe we are too nasty to ourselves. And I think that's really important. You know, we need to regulate the way we think, the way we say to things we say to ourselves. It's so important. It doesn't have to be soppy, but we can say to ourselves, actually, no, that's not okay to think that. You know, I am beautiful, or I am successful, or I am a good person. We all make mistakes, but I think if we learn from them and we apply what we learn, then I really do think that is my single greatest piece of advice. My greatest piece of advice. I think that's the most important piece of advice I can give about what works for me, is to sometimes identify that my internal monologues don't represent reality.